Imagine being locked in a 7 by 12-foot stone tomb, blindfolded, hearing only your own ragged breaths and the distant drip of water on stone. No human contact, no light, just endless isolation designed to break your soul. What if those broken souls never left? Welcome to Eastern State Penitentiary, America's most haunted prison, where the walls still whisper screams from the 1800s. This deep dive into its chilling history and spectral residents will have you double-checking your locks tonight. Hey thrill seekers and shadow chasers, it's Mike's take on the universe, where we peel back the veil on the weird, the wicked, and the wickedly haunted. Today, we were stepping into the crumbling corridors of Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia, a fortress of forgotten anguish tormenting visitors since 1829. Built on 10 acres of what was once Cherry farmland, hence its original name, Cherry Hill State Prison, this Gothic giant cost $500,000 to erect, making it the most expensive building in the United States at the time. Designed by architect John Haviland, its 30-foot walls crowned with spikes loomed like a medieval castle. But this wasn't just any jail. It was the world's first true penitentiary, birthplace of the Pennsylvania system, a brutal philosophy of total solitary confinement meant to reform through reflection. Spoiler alert, it birthed madness instead. Over 142 years, from 1829 to 1971, Eastern State swallowed 75,000 souls, from petty thieves to mob legends, and spat out ghosts that still rattle the bars. Even in the 1940s, guards and prisoners reported eerie visions and bone-deep chills that made hardened men beg for light. Today, it's a national historic landmark, drawing ghost hunters like moths to a flame, featured on Ghost Adventures, Ghost Hunters, and MTV's Fear. Let's rewind to 1829. America was young, rough, and lawless. Prisons were chaos, brawls, disease, and despair. Enter the Quakers of Philadelphia, peace-loving reformers with a radical idea. Isolation could purify the soul. No more whippings or public chains. Instead, 24/7 solitude. Prisoners wore hoods in rare outdoor moments. Food slid through slots. Silence was divine. The first inmate, Charles Williams, a forger, stepped through the gates blindfolded on October 25, 1829. He was marched to Cellblock 1, stripped, sealed in a whitewashed cell, skylight above called the Eye of God, a straw mattress, a Bible, no company, just his own thoughts turning against him. Food was cornmeal mush. Exercise was 1 hour in a walled yard, hooded. Break silence? Guards used the mad chair, binding prisoners motionless for days, or the hole, a pitch-black pit of punishment. At its peak, Eastern State held 450 souls in solitary confinement, a hub and spoke design where guards spied unseen from a central tower. But by the 1830s, cracks formed, not in walls, but minds. Charles Dickens, visiting in 1842, called it cruel and wrong. Prisoners gibbered to walls, clawed at doors, lost their names. One said, "I was so taken down, I did not care to live." Suicides spiked. Tuberculosis and cholera spread in silence. Cells became tombs. By the 1870s, overcrowding broke the system. Riots, escapes, despair. Bank robber Willie Sutton tunneled out in 1945 using spoons and a bedsheet rope. And the ghosts? They started long before that. Prisoners whispered of a shadow man in Cellblock 4, a faceless figure watching from barred windows, and wails echoing from empty cells at midnight. By the 1900s, Eastern State was overflowing, and infamous. The most legendary inmate, Al Capone. In 1929, the Chicago kingpin was busted in Philly for carrying a concealed .45 and got 8 months in Block 4. But his cell looked more like a jazz lounge. Desk, rugs, radio, even flapper paintings. Guards called it Broadway. But Capone didn't sleep easy. He swore one ghost tormented him. Jimmy Clark, brother-in-law of rival Bugs Moran, murdered in the St. Valentine's Day massacre. Nightly, Capone screamed for guards, claiming Clark's spirit scratched at his door. "He's out there," he'd whisper, trembling. Even now, visitors report the same faint clawing on those iron doors, like fingernails dragging across time itself. Then there's Pep the dog. Yes, a black Labrador. In 1924, Pep murdered the governor's cat and was sentenced to life, Mugshot, inmate number, the works. Tourists say they still hear barking in the yard at dusk. Playful, then guttural. A loyal ghost guarding the grounds. Eastern State even held women. From 1831, the female wing housed outlaws like Kate Soffel. The warden's wife turned runaway lover, immortalized in the film Mrs. Soffel. Others weren't so lucky. Nameless women dying of disease, their final cough still caught on EVP recorders whispering, "Water, please." By 1971, riots and rot forced its closure. Cats took over the ruins, a colony nicknamed the Ghost Cats. When tours began in 1989, they vanished. The human echoes didn't. Eastern State isn't just haunted, it's mapped with paranormal zones. Cellblock 12, Lockdown Wing is the worst. Built in the 1930s, cold, vaulted, oppressive. On Ghost Hunters in 2008, cameras caught a full-bodied apparition pacing the second tier before vanishing mid-step. Cackling laughter still echoes through the halls, not joyous, but cracked. Visitors hear whispers calling their names. "Hey, over here." Cellblock 6, the Klondike, where inmates once froze naked in winter. Shadow figures glide along the walls, tall, hooded, silent. Travel Channel investigators filmed a chair moving on its own. Visitors feel tugged, invisible fingers begging to be remembered. Cellblock 4, Capone's old haunt, is ghost central. Translucent faces appear behind bars. Heavy boots stomp the catwalk, stopping at Capone's cell, knocking. The infirmary, a necropolis of moans and wheezes, voices pleading, "Let me out." Even ghost adventurers Zach Bagans fled shaken, claiming unseen hands rattled locks and whispered threats. The yard? Pep's domain. Dogs whine, pulling at leashes, chasing a black lab that fades mid-run. And the tower? Guards once watched from there. Now it's a vortex of whispers, names, regrets, prayers tumbling like leaves in a storm. Since reopening to the public, the reports haven't stopped. Footsteps in empty halls, screams at 3 a.m., batteries drained during EVP sessions. In 2025, visitors on Reddit's R Ghosts posted photos of orb clusters forming faces in Cellblock 12. Others claim icy breath on their necks during the Steve Buscemi audio tour, his narration overlapping with voices that weren't in the recording. Paranormal investigators call it ground zero for unrest. Even NPR's skeptical 2013 probe admitted the 1940s guard reports of a watcher in the mirrors remain unexplained. Goosebumps yet? If Eastern State's haunted history gripped you like a cell door slamming shut, smash that like button. Subscribe to Mike's Take on the Universe for Part 2, where we dive into riots, escapes, and Halloween horrors that'll make your blood freeze. Drop your own paranormal encounter in the comments. Seen a shadow? Heard a whisper? Your story could go viral and maybe summon answers. Share this with a ghost hunting friend. Tag them below. For real chills, book a tour at easternstate.org and tell them Mike sent you. Until next time, sleep with the lights on. Signing off from the shadows,